Thanks. My name is Deborah Eichenbaum. I'm a grants management specialist with the OST office, the Office of Out of School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes. Again, Alex, thank you so much for the framing of Learn 24 and OST. We are going to ask that if you have any questions, that you put them into the chat box. If you have any technical issues, please raise your hand or come off of mute. But other than that, please do stay on mute for the presentation, or Alex might put you on mute just so that you know that that can happen. If we can, we will get to questions at some point. Did I see a hand raised or no? No? Okay. But I don't know if we're going to have time. And so if there are questions in the chat that I cannot get to, they will be responded to in the questions and answers document. So I'm not going, so Alex, we can go to the first slide. Great. The school year 22-23 out of school time RFA is hopefully what you're all here for right now. I am not going to go through what Learn 24 is, since Alex just did a wonderful job of that. But this RFA will be made available through the OST office, and federal funds have been made available by OSSI, and grant awards are contingent upon the availability of funds. So the scope of the grant. The school year 22-23 RFA invites high-performing, fiscally responsible, nonprofit youth development organizations with a history of success in increasing participants' academic knowledge, skills, and behaviors, and serve school-aged children and youth aged 5 and above with programs that meet either before school, after school, when classes are not in session, on weekends, or during seasonal school breaks during the school year. Only 501c3 organizations are considered nonprofits by the OST office. Continuation grant cycles. Everyone's always interested in continuation funding. The OST office has 2 grant cycles per year. We have school year and we have summer grants. Only school year grants are eligible for continuation funds, as the cycle for summer is too long between programs. All OST school year grants are eligible for continuation funding, assuming there is good standing and the availability of funds. After the 3rd year of funding, organizations must reapply. So that would be the original year that the organization applies for, and then 2 additional years of funding. If an organization is funded in the same fiscal year, in both a school year and a summer competition, they will be invited for a year to compete in what we call a year-round competition. And if awarded, would need to provide both school year and summer programs for each year that they are funded. Total amount of funding. The OST office anticipates awarding a total of up to $3.5 million and up to $150,000 per grantee in this competition. In order to receive a grant award of more than $100,000, applicants must deliver an evidence-based intervention for a minimum of 60 district youth. Those funds will be coming from both a federal and a local source, and organizations must be able to identify the evidence-based intervention that is utilized. Youth development outcomes. The intent of this grant is to support high-quality OST programs that offer educational, social, emotional, and physical health opportunities for youth. The OST office is seeking to fund youth-serving organizations that provide intentional opportunities that help youth reach developmental outcomes and have meaningful roles in their community. So youth development outcomes are defined as the result of programs, services, and supports that are designed to engage youth to meet their developmental needs and refer to changes in knowledge, attitude, or behavior. These outcomes have been framed into two categories: identity and ability. Identity is a sense of personal well-being and a connection and commitment to others. Ability is the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that prepare youth for adulthood. Outcomes in general are knowledge, skills, attributes, abilities, and behaviors that youth need to be healthy, caring, and responsible as they transition into adulthood. I'm going to pause here for just 1 second. Alex, do you know if anyone is experiencing any tech challenges that we need to address? Have you seen anything like that in the chat, or we're good?
I see somebody that asked if it was a PowerPoint presentation. They said they're not able to see it. So are other people viewing able to see the PowerPoint presentation?
I
think I see.
I see it. Great. I see a yes and a thumbs up. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So this PowerPoint will be made available at the end if you were not able to view it, if you had tech challenges. It will be on the Learn24 website as soon as we can get it posted in the next day or two. Okay, moving on to evidence-based interventions. In order to receive a grant of more than $100,000, applicants must have a history of using an evidence-based intervention that supports academic, social, emotional learning, or other youth development outcomes. The evidence-based intervention should meet the American Rescue Plan, or ARP, criteria. Evidence-based practices are defined as practices or programming that have been shown through research or data to improve outcomes. Evidence-based interventions should improve outcomes for students and have either strong, moderate, or promising evidence to support them. The term evidence-based, when used with respect to after-school activities, means an activity, strategy, or intervention that meets one of these following. Either demonstrate a statistically significant effect on improving student outcomes or other relevant outcomes based on strong evidence from at least one well-designed and well-implemented experimental study, or moderate evidence from at least one well-designed and well-implemented quasi-experimental study, or promising evidence from at least one well-designed and well-implemented correlational study with statistical controls for selection bias, or it demonstrates a rationale based on high-quality research findings or positive evaluation, such as activities, strategies, or interventions that are likely to improve student outcomes or other relevant outcomes. And it includes ongoing efforts to examine the effects of those activities, strategies, or interventions. A one-page citation or bibliography is required if requesting more than $100,000. Please see the U.S. Department of Education's guidance on using evidence to strengthen education investments for more information. There are additional sources located in the RFA for applicants to access, such as the What Works Clearinghouse. Target population. Grants will be awarded to organizations serving school-age district youth. Preference will be given to applicants that serve youth who are most in need or at risk and require access to high-quality, low or no-cost OST opportunities. The legislative definition for at risk is a DC public school, public school student or a public charter school student who is identified as one or more of the following: homeless, in the district's foster care system, they qualify for TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or they are a high school student that is 1 year older or more than the expected age for the grade in which the student is enrolled. The district does maintain the right to add priority points, and organizations must be able to describe the community needs that the program addresses in the narrative. Programs must also be available to any youth across the district that meets the target population, and organizations may be asked by the OST office to include youth experiencing housing insecurity. So the grant and the program period, these are both from October 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. The grant period represents the time period that an organization can submit bills or receipts for goods or services to their grant manager against the grant funds. And those have to be within those dates provided. For example, if rent is part of the budget, September rent would not be an acceptable grant cost. And the program period refers to the time period in which that program must be held. So the program must meet the program dosage and be held within that time frame. It cannot go into July and August. Programming may occur at any time during the program period to meet the minimum dosage. And since I've been talking about program dosage, let's jump in. Programs must serve a minimum of 30 unduplicated district youth by the end of the grant period and 60 unduplicated district youth in order to receive a grant award of more than $100,000. Programs must maintain an adult to child ratio of 1 to 15 if serving youth under the age of 17, unless a lower ratio is required. Organizations must offer consistent and ongoing programs designed to enroll the same group of youth and operate in one of the following ways. Either the programming occurs during the school calendar for a minimum of once a week for at least 1 hour a week for a minimum of 24 weeks, or it's an intensive program across 6 continuous weeks that meet at least 4 hours a week, or when schools are closed for seasonal breaks, intersessions, holidays, single-day closures, could even be Saturdays. Throughout the grant period, the program schedule must cover a minimum of 3 school breaks for a minimum of 6 hours per day for a total of 15 days over the grant period. Program location. We ask on the cover sheet if the organization has programmed or is programming at a DCPS location, and we want to know if you've worked at that location previously. If the program location changes or if the organization adds a program site, contact the grant manager. Learn24 has a preference for in-person programming, and all programs will need to adhere to safety and security measures required by DC. So probably another good spot to take a quick break and check in with you, Alex Brown. Anything I need to know?
We got some questions in the chat, but I'm not sure if you want to answer those now or if you want to continue, because I think some are actually eligibility questions, and it might be covered in the next couple of sessions. So I think we can keep rolling and then answer these questions at the end, because some questions might answer themselves.
Terrific.
Hopefully.
And I also want to make sure we get through all of the content. Thanks, Alex. Okay, eligibility and requirements. Organizational requirements. Between the school year and the small nonprofit RFA, only one grant can be awarded. The only exception to this is for organizations applying as a coordinating entity working at either a DCHA or DHS location. Organizations must be 501c3s, operating for a minimum of 2 years, and registered to operate in the District of Columbia. Organizational indirect costs should not exceed more than 30% of the total organization budget. This is not the program budget and indirect costs in the program budget. This specifically relates to the organization budget. Operations. Both fiscal sponsors and applicants must provide the relevant information, including the 2 years of 990s, the Office of Tax and Revenue clean hands within the past year, the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs, DCRA, good standing, and the DCRA basic business license. And please make sure to get all of that documentation and apply for those documents so that you have them prior to the date the application is due. Also make sure that the effective date of the 501c3 is correct, and it is more, the organization has been a 501c3 for a minimum of 2 years. If an organization has a budget under $250,000, they can still apply for the school year grant. It is the other way around. It is organizations with budgets over $250,000 that cannot apply for the small nonprofit grant. And I'll go into small nonprofits in a little bit. If the applicant is a prior or current Learn 24 grantee, the applicant must be in compliance with all prior grant agreements. All right, program experience. Organizations must have offered the program for at least 2 years. A one-page logic model or theory of change is required and does not count toward the narrative page limit. Any format is fine, although we have provided a sample template. A logic model workshop has been pre-recorded and can be found on the Learn 24 website, as can the template. Financial requirements. Please include copies of the fiscal year income statement and profit loss statement, 2 years of the 990s and any schedules filed, and the board-approved organization budget for the current year. LEAs are exempt from the providing an organization budget. Okay. Audits. The OST office defines a small nonprofit organization as an organization with an organizational budget of $250,000 or less. Small nonprofit organizations are eligible to apply for the larger grant, but in order to do so, they must provide an audit. If they are applying to the small nonprofit grant, they do not need to provide an audit. All organizations that are applying to this grant for over $50,000 do need an audit in place. If you are an organization that has an organizational budget of over $250,000, you need to have an audit submitted with your application or a letter of engagement. That audit has to be completed by an independent CPA. If the letter of engagement is not received prior to grant agreements being executed, a grant agreement will not be executed for more than $50,000. Grant fund limitations. A full list of grant fund limitations is provided in the RFA, and the limitations do include sales tax. All grantees are nonprofit organizations and as such have exemption from paying sales tax. The OST office will not reimburse sales tax if it is on a receipt. Grant funds may only be used to support youth residing in the district. Grant funds may not be used in conjunction with other District of Columbia grant government funds to serve the same program and the same youth. A federal negotiated income cost rate, or the NICRA, is acceptable, and that rate may be applied to the budget. If a grantee does not have a NICRA, the de minimis indirect rate is 10%. Applicants may not subcontract for more than 40% of grant funds, and the use of subcontractors must be provided in the budget narrative. And subcontractors, when used, must also have clearances in CitySpan. Program expenses. Grant funds must be applied to direct program costs. These include program staff salaries and benefits, program supplies and materials, contracted services, curricula, program evaluation, staff time, training, reporting, and accounting costs when related to the program expenses. Administrative expenses that relate to programming, such as rent for program space, are allowable. However, rent for organizational headquarters would be an indirect cost. Indirect costs, as I've said, are allowable at either the NICRA or the de minimis rate. Program budgets must be provided in the Excel Learn24 budget template provided. Training will be, since this is a change from the previous applications, we will provide training on how to use that budget template. And this is only for the program budget. It is not for the organization budget. The organization budget can be submitted in any format, but for the program budget, we are asking that you use the Learn24 template. There is a copy of the Learn24 template, budget template on the website. As I said, we will be doing a training on the 25th, I believe it is. It's in the RFA. Please come to that if you have any questions. And the Google Sheet that is provided in the RFA is for example purposes only and cannot be edited or downloaded. Excuse me. Alex, were you able to put the budget template in the chat? Or you can't do that? You can put the training in there. You can't put
I just put the training. I just put the link to the training as well as the budget template link as well into the chat.
Thank you, Alex. All right. Look at us. We're about halfway. I think a little more maybe. Application narrative. All right, the application process. We provide a checklist for your convenience. Do not submit the checklist or upload it, but it must be completed in the Seamless Docs form online. You can use that checklist to prepare your answers, and that's why we provide it in the RFA. It's important to read the RFA carefully, not just the questions for the narrative. All required documents must be submitted in either PDF, Word, or Excel, and be uploaded with the completion of the application form. Applications will not be reviewed if the process is not followed. Additional documents not requested will not be reviewed. Documents that exceed the page limits will also not be reviewed. The narrative format. Responses should be written according to the sections and in the order listed to receive maximum point allocations. Organizing the narrative by sections with the corresponding header is something we suggest. The budget narrative is included in the overall pages. That's the narrative part of the budget when you're explaining the budget, and should be used to clarify and justify the budget calculations. The budget itself or the calculations part may be separate documents and will not count toward the narrative page limit. When the responses are written, as we ask you to do it in the sections listed, it's really for the reviewers, because that's what we tell reviewers, that they should be able to see each section and only score that section one at a time. So, I mean, these are 10-page documents. We're not making, nor could we, make a reviewer sit down and read all 10 pages at once. So if you have an answer to something in section 3, even though it relates to section 1, the reviewer is not obligated to score that from section 3. They can just read section 1 and review and score that section and move on. So we always also ask that anyone please apply to be a reviewer. You would not review a competition in the same, you would not be able to review competitions in a competition that you're applying to, but we have 4 open competitions. So, and we are always looking for qualified youth development reviewers. Shameless plug for the OST office. I have no problem with that. The narrative format continued. So all of these details, I think it's the next slide, Alex. Great. All of these details are important, so please do follow the directions that we've written, include page numbers, the font, the margins we state. It is all important. The use of tables, graphs, or charts is permitted, but it will count toward the narrative page limit. Required documents. There is a list of documents required and the dates. It shows, for example, that a 501c3 needs to be valid for at least 2 years. Please make sure that all of your documentation proves that the organization is compliant with the time frame, or the organization is ineligible to apply. So clean hands and good standing need to be dated within the past year. The date is June 7th, 2021 through June 7th, 2022. June 7th is the date because that is the date that applications are due by. The basic business license needs to be currently valid. All of the documents that we require do need to get uploaded into Seamless Docs. They, some of them I've already discussed, the profit and loss statements, income statements, the audit, if applying, the 990s and the cover sheet and the program locations. That is not uploaded, but as I said before, submitted online. The narrative is a maximum of 10 pages. Your budgets, certificate and assurances is a form that is an attachment to the RFA. And if applicable, if applying for more than $100,000, citation or bibliography of an evidence-based intervention research at a 1-page maximum. Okay, moving on to the scoring rubric. There are 6 sections that will be scored, and applicants will be reviewed on an 88-point scale. They include organization history and staff experience, need, description, and justification. There is a subsection, which I'm going to talk about it in a minute. program measures, youth involvement, making connections, and the budget. Please note that the logic model is used in part to score the program measures section, and the program budget is used in part to score the budget section. For applicants that are not requesting more than $100,000, they will not complete the subsection, and their point allocation will be out of 80 points and not 88. So subsection B.2.2a, this section is only relevant to organizations that are requesting more than $100,000. All other organizations should not answer these questions, and it will therefore not be scored. For applicants not requesting more than $100,000, the total point allocation will be 80 points. So about the scoring rubric. The rubric is attached to the RFA. It is the last attachment in the RFA. Please review the rubric and remember that the reviewers use the rubric to score the narrative. There are 4 sections in each row. 1 point for unacceptable or did not respond, 2 points for acceptable, 3 points for good, and 4 points for excellent. There are parts of the narrative questions and parts of the rubric that talk about supportive evidence and quantitative or qualitative evidence. Specific information and results based on evidence should be included in the application. The application is an opportunity to show the reviewer the effectiveness of the program. The strongest applications include details on how the evidence is collected, the data itself, program changes that have been made based on the data, and information on how that affects outcomes. So what is supportive evidence? It's evidence that's the stories of your organization. Do you have board members that were once program participants or staff members? Do you have experience? Did you experience a youth make tremendous strides based on your program? Include that information as supportive evidence. Some criteria in the rubric ask for quantitative or qualitative evidence. That is supportive evidence. Show the impact of your program through these stories and the data. Budgets. Provide program budgets. The calculations do not count toward the page limits, but include the descriptions and justifications for all budget items in the budget narrative. Fully describe the use of the grant dollars in the budget narrative, which is part of the overall narrative. For example, in the budget, when you're explaining your math, multiply the number of hours by the number of weeks by the dollar amount to show how that final amount for a salary was derived. If it's materials for youth, multiply the art supplies by the number of youth to show that final amount. Do not just put in final amounts. The actual program budget is a separate document and can be any length. But please remember that reviewers are reviewing those program budgets, so try not to make them too lengthy. Workshops and training. Since the budget template is a new requirement, the OST office will host a virtual training. We've already put that into the chat previously, but we hope to be able to give you an overview and answer any questions related to that. The logic model training is pre-recorded and is on, can be located on Learn24. Questions and answers. Please submit questions to this very, very, very important email address, rfa.sy22-23@dc.gov. The answers will begin to be published as of this Friday. You can find that in the RFA itself. There is a link to the question and answer document. Questions asked after May 31st will not be answered, but there is an error in the RFA. The last day that questions will be published is Friday, June 3rd. It says Friday, June 1st in the RFA, and that's incorrect. If an organization is a current grantee and is reapplying because you have reached the limit of your continuation grants, please do not contact your grant manager with questions, but send them to the email address provided here. The reason I say it's very important, and if there's anything that you can take away from today, it is to make sure that that email address is enabled, because if you submit your application and we have any questions for you, we will reach out from that email address. If it goes straight to your junk and you never see it, there's nothing we can do about that. If we do not get answers to the questions we need, your application will be ineligible for review. So please make sure to enable that email address. Application submission. Applications and attachments must be submitted by 5 p.m. On June 7th. Applications received after the deadline will not be reviewed. Applications without a confirmation notification will not be reviewed. Incomplete applications will not be accepted. We cannot accept applications by fax or in person. No extensions can be granted for the submission of missing application components, and applications with missing attachments will be considered incomplete. Please print out the confirmation when it comes up on the browser, or take a screenshot or even just a picture from your phone. Something so that we can verify that it was submitted if for any reason there are tech challenges on our end. There is a list of attachments in the application. If there is a date associated with the document, please make sure that the document the organization submits is within that date range provided. All RFAs need to be submitted through Seamless Docs. An account will need to be created in Seamless Docs, if the organization does not already have one. Click the link from the RFA to access the correct application. If the link does not appear, then copy and paste it from the RFA, because we've also listed it out completely. Attachments cannot be saved and must be submitted at one time. That's why we give you the list, so you can organize them, maybe put them all on your desktop so that they're ready and easily accessible to upload. The cover sheet, however, can be saved. All questions on the cover sheet must be answered. Please click the paperclip icon on the front page of the Seamless Doc form, or the submit button to access the list of required attachments and upload those documents. If we have time, Alex is going to be able to bring up the Seamless Docs, but I do just want to give a heads up that when submitting into the section on the cover sheet that asks for a date range, if you have your screen compressed and you're looking at different things, the calendar will not work. You have to expand your screen to the size of your computer for the calendar to actually be able to put in the proper dates. Okay, review process. The OST office will organize panels of 3 independent grant reviewers who have a background and knowledge of youth development and out-of-school time. Each application is read by 3 reviewers, and they use the rubric that is attached to the RFA. In the event that the 3 reviewers' scores differ by 10 points or more from the average, a 4th review is completed, and the initial score with the greatest difference from the mean is discarded. The 3 reviewer scores will be used to calculate a final score that is then used to rank applications. These scores and ranks will be used to determine grant awards. Priority points may be provided to ensure equity across the district. Additional points will be awarded consistently and objectively based on information supplied in the proposal. All reviewers are trained in the use of the rubric, and all reviewers are screened for conflicts of interest. Notification of awards. All applicants will be notified by email about the status of the award by August of 2022. Applicants will receive anonymous reviewer score sheets in September 2022. As I've said before, please make sure to enable the email address, one more time for good measure, rfa.sy22-23@dc.gov. That way we make sure it does not get caught in your spam filters. All funding decisions are final and are not subject to review, appeal, or protest. So application tips. Some things that I can share would be to make sure that the application follows the order of the RFA. As I said before, that's what we tell reviewers to do. So please make it easy for the reviewers to follow the great stories you're about to tell them. Do not submit documents or materials that are not requested, curriculum or photos. Budget narratives should be detailed, show your math, and based on each line item in the budget. And always avoid general language. Be detailed, be specific, especially regarding your program activities, the authentic connection to the community, how you've used evaluation to improve your program, how you've incorporated youth voice in your program design, and how you're tapping into other revenue streams. One thing I always suggest, and it's very, very difficult to do, I know this, but it really does help if you are able to do it. Write your narrative early and then give it to someone to review. Give them the rubric and your narrative. It is always my preference if you can give that to someone who is not part of your program. Someone who doesn't know your program intimately. And so they give them the rubric, make them score your application because you want them to be able to come back to you with real criticism. And it gives you the opportunity to rewrite any sections that they said, you know, this wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be. You know, I really wanted to give you a 3 in this, but I couldn't. So make sure that they understand what the youth in your program experience. What does it feel like to be a youth in your program? Ask whoever reviews it to really be tough because they are not helping you if all they do is say nice things. So grantee requirements. This slide shows a general list of the grantee requirements. Since the OST office is accountable to taxpayers for our grant funds, we do have strict compliance measures. However, we also work very closely with our grantees to make sure that they're able to comply, and we try and ease that burden whenever possible. We believe in an open door policy, and we're happy to talk or answer questions at any time. We do actually pride ourselves on being responsive and available. Grantees will be required to attend grantee meetings and activities, including participation with the program quality intervention, which will include a self-assessment for all organizations, participate in research and evaluation activities, comply with insurance requirements, participate in administrative and programmatic site visits, ensure that all staff, contractors, and volunteers receive the required clearances, utilize the district's database, CitySpan, provide programmatic updates, provide financial documentation, and have someone from the organization be a grant reviewer by the end of the continuation cycles, which I talked about continuation cycles earlier. Feel free to review the important dates that are listed in the RFA. And that's it. Just that email address, very important. We will answer grant questions in the Q&A document. Alex did say there were some. I'll try and answer some in the remaining 10 minutes. But just so that you know, the Q&A document is going to be posted publicly. And then if a question comes in after, will be updated continually. But again, the rfa.sy22-23@dc.gov is a very important email address. And I do want to thank you for coming today. So Alex, are there any questions that I can answer possibly right now?
Yeah, I'm going to try to go back to the beginning. I'm going to try to be rapid fire. So bear with me.
Absolutely. And it is possible that Alex reads a question out and I say, I'm going to answer that one in the Q&A document.
All right, so the first question, and I actually answered it as well, but is there a PowerPoint? They don't see it. So we actually did request those emails so we can send that PowerPoint out to those individuals who were not able to see that. But the PowerPoint will be also posted on the Learn24 website. The second question is the RFA asked for an income statement and a profit loss statement. Is that one document or two?
Two.
Okay. Regarding continuation grants, Beacon House is in the final year of its year-round continuation grant. Will Beacon House receive the opportunity to apply for a new 3-year round of funding, or will the grants be offered on 1-year grants?
I'm sorry, is that a question about school year and summer grants? Is that what that is? Can you read that one more time to me?
Or Mr. Hinton, if you want to come over mute and clarify.
Yes, so I didn't see the year-round language.
Sure, happy to explain
the information that was distributed.
Absolutely.
So I'm not clear about duration, what's included in this specific 2022-2023 opportunity.
Absolutely. So first of all, if there's any organizations, we also are having an office hours. If there's anybody who is a current grantee, we're having an office hours tomorrow from 12 to 1. You should have gotten that email in the all grantee email to answer any questions about whether you're a continuation or whether you need to reapply. So for organizations that are coming off of their 3rd year of continuation grants as a year-round grantee. Let me explain what year-round grantee means. That means that you programmed in the school year and the summer of a fiscal year. You were awarded both a school year and a summer grant. And for those organizations, we send out an invitation-only grant to be a year-round grantee. Those organizations have the same 3-year cycle. It's the year that they apply plus 2 additional continuation years, and then need to reapply in both the school year and a summer grant. And if they are awarded in both the school year and the summer grant, will be invited that following fiscal year to be a year-round grantee again. And it would be the same cycle. They would be a year-round grantee, assuming they are awarded, and then 2 years of continuation before they need to go through the entire cycle again. Does that answer the question?
I'm gonna try to restate it just to make sure I have the right understanding. So it sounds like because we are coming off of the 3rd year of our grant, then we need to apply for a single year of funding.
You need to apply for the school year and the summer grant when the summer grant comes out. Summer grants come out in October.
Okay, so I got it. So we should expect to apply twice for funding this year.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, moving along, trying to, would you explain priority points?
Priority points. No, I'm going to answer that one in the Q&A document.
Got it. All right, and then so the RFA states, and once again, Deborah, I'm trying to run through them. So grant funds may not be used with other District of Columbia government grants to serve the same youth within the program. Does this mean a program cannot apply for OST funds if already receiving 21st century funds, even if the OST funds would pay for different program components and or staff? No double dipping.
I think it is just going to be clearer if I answer that in the Q&A document. However, basically, the short answer is that grants can supplement but not supplant funds.
Okay. All right. Typically, we incur some summer camp costs during the summer camp period. Would these be ineligible for funding under a grant with a grant period end date of June 30th? So I'm guessing that they're basically saying if they're applying for school year funding, but however, they have a program that moves over into summer programming, but the grant period ends on June 30th.
So I think I can clarify. I had this year-round construct in my mind. So this may be moot if, based now that I have the understanding that this process is just for school year only funding.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. All right, and then Lee, can you just give me a thumbs up if your question was answered? Because you said you had the same question.
You know, I think I might have to
Well,
just
ask Kevin about the continuation.
bring it up at the office hours. Because I think it might be a unique situation.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. The 10-page limit is very restrictive. Can you add 1 or 2 pages?
So we get this every year that it is either restrictive or it's too long. We are trying to balance the we cannot add any pages. The short answer is no. It is a 10-page maximum for the application. And we are balancing both the reviewer's time and the organization's desire to provide
Further
a wonderful
details.
narrative.
Yeah. Got it. Does the 1-page bibliography count towards the 10-page limit?
It does not.
Okay. Chugging along. Is it safe to assume that a reviewer may have not read a previous section, as in writing about a program component in one section and mention it shorthand in another, then a reviewer may not have full context? Or are we just indicating their score by section, but still each reviewer doesn't read the whole proposal?
Okay, I'm hearing 2 questions in there, but I'll try. Reviewers will read the entire proposal. However, they are instructed that they only need to respond section by section. And they only need to score section by section, which means that if you have information in one section that you think should be repeated, we suggest that you literally repeat that information in the section and don't refer back to a different section, but repeat it. We try to make the questions different enough that it won't require actual repeating, but that depends on you.
Is that good for you, Christopher? Sorry, I was about to say.
Yeah. The way when you were talking about it earlier, I came out thinking, oh, a reviewer might only read this and completely miss context of something earlier, so that we would have to overthink how we drafted it. Thank you. That's clear.
Okay, thank you. Chugging along with our last couple minutes, chugging along. If we would like to request a meeting, do we need to send the email to the RFA.SY22-23 at
Feedback sessions will be offered to all grantees, to all applicants at the end of the after awards and denials have been made. We do not meet with potential applicants.
I'm sorry, can I clarify my question? So basically, I'm with Planned Parenthood of Metropolitan Washington, D.C., and so we were awarded before. However, there were some administrative changes. So with those administrative changes in terms of staffing, I don't know exactly what happened with the grant. And so I guess I want to get more clarification on whether or not we're able to even apply for the grant.
I got it. Absolutely. That's a definitely different situation. So please either email me or email Learn24, and we will get your email to the right person.
Do you mind putting your email in the chat, or
Learn24@dc.gov.
Yeah. Learn24@dc.gov. Thank you.
Sure.
I think we got two questions. Sorry. A couple more questions.
All right, but we are at 3 o'clock. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time and thank you very much. Anything that
I think the biggest question right now, I do see one for what number is the office hours for tomorrow. So I'm going to drop that into the chat. And of course, it's the link, no registration required, but I'm going to drop that into the chat as well.
I'm just going to say that is only for current grantees.
It's Miss Williams. It's Miss Williams.
Oh, okay. Miss Williams, I can send that to you. Miss Davis, you mean?
Davis.
Okay, Miss Davis, I'll send that to you.